For months, the conversation has been swirling, but now we have it. Denis Villeneuve's next film is officially titled Dune Part 3. This is a big, and for some, a confusing change from the expected title of Dune Messiah. This immediately raises huge questions over what this means for the film's adaptation, and whether the director will look to bring in other elements from before and after the Messiah novel. But that's not all. In the last few weeks, we got a bombshell piece of casting news. The roles of Paul and Chani's children, the twins Leto II and Ghanima, have been filled. So in this video, we're going to break down all the latest news for Dune Part 3. We'll analyze what this title change really means, how the casting of the twins fits into the puzzle, and how all of this connects to the massive 12-year time jump that presents the biggest challenge of the entire trilogy. This video will contain spoilers for Dune Messiah, so if you have not yet read the book or are waiting for the film, I recommend watching this at a later time. But without further ado, let's dive into the future of Arrakis. So let's start with the name, Dune Part 3. On one hand, you can see the corporate logic. After the colossal success of Dune and Dune Part 2, Warner Bros. Clearly wants to maintain brand consistency. It's clean, it's simple, it sells. But some fans have speculated that this altered title might be related to the creative direction that Denis intends to take. By freeing himself from the Messiah book title, he gives himself the creative license to not be strictly limited to that single storyline. And this leads us directly to the biggest problem, and now, the biggest opportunity. The 12-year gap between Dune and Dune Messiah. The books don't explore much of these years, but they are immensely eventful. We learn that the Holy War initiated by Paul has led to the deaths of over 60 billion people. This is the period that has to transform our hero into a haunted tyrant. Villeneuve's films have already strayed from the source, especially with the bond between Paul and Chani. The ending of Dune Part 2 didn't just create a hurdle, it created a narrative chasm. Chani leaves Paul, disgusted by his ascent to power. For the events of Messiah to happen, they must reunite. The new title gives Villeneuve the perfect excuse to show us that story. It allows him to bridge the gap the books skip over, to show us Paul's initial, brutal days as Emperor, and to craft a believable, if painful, reunion with Chani. It makes sense that the first act of Part 3 could be dedicated to filling in this crucial, missing history. Now, let's talk about the twins. It's been reported that Ida Brooke has been cast as Ghanima, alongside Nakoa Wolf Momoa as her brother Leto II. This news has thrown fans into a frenzy, with many wondering if the film is going to cram the plot of the third book, Children of Dune, into this movie. In my opinion, I think this is highly unlikely. Denis has been clear that the trilogy is focused on Paul's story, and he would champion another filmmaker to tackle the books beyond Messiah. I believe what we are seeing is a repeat of the Aaliyah situation from Part 2. The twins will not be walking, talking characters in the present timeline. Instead, they will be apparitions, ghosts of the future, haunting Paul's prescient visions. Think about it. Paul is already tormented by the future he has chosen. What could be more haunting than being visited by the faces of the children he will have, the very children whose futures are tied to his terrible golden path? It allows the film to keep the focus squarely on Paul's psychological torment, while brilliantly foreshadowing the future of the saga, suggesting to audiences that there is much more story to be told. But even with these clever, structural changes, we still arrive at the core challenge, what I'm calling the Messiah trap. Even if Villeneuve shows us the 12-year war, even if he fixes the Chani problem, and even if he uses the twins as visions, he still has to pull off the most difficult trick in blockbuster filmmaking. He has to make the audience accept their hero becoming a monster. The entire point of the Dune Messiah novel is to deconstruct the hero myth. It argues, quite powerfully, that the triumphant figure we cheered for at the end of the first story is, in fact, a catalyst for a galaxy-altering tragedy. His victory is humanity's catastrophe. This is a dark, philosophical, and deeply uncomfortable theme, especially for mainstream audiences conditioned to love their heroes unconditionally. The film cannot soften this blow. To do so would betray the entire point of Herbert's saga. It must embrace the darkness. It must make us, the audience, complicit in Paul's horrific reign, forcing us to question our own desire for a charismatic leader. So, while the title change and the casting of the twins give us fascinating clues as to how Denis Villeneuve will structure Dune Part 3, the fundamental challenge remains. This adaptation is a narrative minefield. It requires the filmmakers to transform their protagonist, solve a romantic storyline of their own creation, and convey the passage of 12 years of brutal history, all while staying true to a deeply tragic and anti-blockbuster theme. Villeneuve is one of the very few directors alive I would trust with this material, but the challenge is immense. Can a mainstream audience accept a story that so thoroughly dismantles its own hero? We're about to find out. and the fate of what could be the greatest sci-fi trilogy of the 21st century hangs in the balance. Alright, so those are my quick thoughts on what I think the structure will be for the next Dune film, but I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below, so let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.